And I think they come out of this again as the very, very, very clear favorite in the AFC. So one of the favorites in the AFC. All right, welcome in. It is the Breer Report for Friday, September the 19th. Week 3 is underway. The Buffalo Bills beating the Miami Dolphins on Thursday Night Football, 31-21, and that's where we're going to start this edition of the Breer Report. I don't think there's too much to it from Buffalo's side. They did seem like they were sleepwalking at times. At one point in the game, they were up by 2 touchdowns, and it looked like this thing was going to turn into a complete runaway. That didn't wind up happening. The Dolphins battled back, but I think what you're seeing again is a Buffalo team that even when things got a little sketchy, even when they got a little sloppy, seemed like they were in complete control. This one could have been 49-7. It winds up being 31-21. It's the sort of game that teams are going to have to battle through. Great teams battle through and win. They win this one by double digits. I think to some degree, because it is a Thursday night, because you are in a short week, you are managing it a little bit differently. They were very intent on running the ball, and you saw that. But there wasn't any sort of red flag in this one being competitive. There were just some bumps along the way. The Buffalo defense is going to continue to get better. They're able to manage some of their injuries in this game too. Ed Oliver doesn't play, so they get him the extra rest. And I think they come out of this again as the very, very, very clear favorite in the AFC. So one of the favorites in the AFC. So there's not too much to it from a Buffalo standpoint. Came in as one of the two or three best teams in the league. They come out as one of the 2 or 3 best teams in the league. Okay, so that leads us to the team that lost here. And why Miami, even though they lost the game, actually might come out of this feeling okay about themselves. They have been through a lot over the last 3 weeks. The first week, of course, of the season, they come in and they get their doors blown off in a non-competitive 33-8 loss. That could have been worse to the Indianapolis Colts on the road. Worse than just being than being beat down that way. They looked listless. It just to have that sort of no-show in week 1 when there were so many questions facing your team through the offseason, not great. Then they have the players-only meeting. And that players-only meeting goes the way a lot of these things do, where the players are saying we need to put it on ourselves. This isn't about circumstances. This isn't about coaches. This is about accountability to each other. This is about accountability to ourselves. The captains in that room said to their teammates, the NFL is going to judge you based on your own performance, and they aren't going to make excuses for you. So you need to go out and play for each other. You need to go out and play for yourselves. And then while the effort was better in week 2, the result was a loss to a New England team that, while it's improved, only won 4 games last year. The Patriots haven't won in Miami in forever. And the worst part about it was you had operations issues at the end of that game. You had a turnover issue at the end of that game. There was an interception. There was a sack. There was a kick return touchdown for the other team that just kind of gave you the feeling, all right, like even when they gave a little bit of a better effort, the operation's not so tight. So you have those sorts of questions coming into this one. Short week on the road against the team that's won the division the last 5 years in a row. And this one very easily could have gotten away from the Dolphins, and it didn't. And I think that speaks well of Mike McDaniel and his staff and their ability to keep the team on board, regardless of how it happened. Keep the team on board, get a really good effort in a really tough spot. And a couple of things stuck out to me about the effort in particular. Number one, and this is right off the top, they're able to grind out that long drive to win the game. They take up almost half of the first quarter to do it. It's exactly what you want to do against Josh Allen and the Bills. So you go up 7-0. Then you fall way behind, and now all of a sudden it looks like, okay, like that was just the dead cat bounce there on that first drive. But you're able to battle back and tie the game at 21, and you're at the point where this is a really competitive game. So you've given the effort off the top. Then you fell behind against a superior team. You're able to battle back. So that speaks to a team that's engaged. Again, like those Thursday night games can be tough, especially when you're on the road, what that does to your body. They're able to summon the effort at the top of the game. They're able to summon the effort in the midst of the game. And so the effort's really good. Obviously a couple things at the end weren't great. I think the one that really sticks out, a couple that really stick out, the Zach Seiler penalty on the punt, the roughing the punter, that was very, very costly. Put the Bills in position for the go-ahead touchdown, winds up being the game-winning touchdown, and then the Tua Tagovailoa interception to Terrell Bernard. That said, there are things in this game to build on. Tyreek Hill has now had a couple solid games in a row. Jalen Waddle came alive a little bit. The offensive line played better. The defense still needs work, but that's an elite Buffalo group with the MVP of the league at quarterback. And the schedule is relatively manageable here for the next month or so. So if you're the Dolphins, you come out of this one and you say to yourself, we were in a really difficult position coming into this game. We fought. We gave it a really good effort. There's no consolation prize that comes because of that, but there is something to build on coming out of the Thursday night game, and a Thursday night game when, again, it certainly looked like the organization was in a bit of chaos and the owner was going to have some big picture decisions to make. And some of the questions from the offseason about there being separate sets of rules for separate groups of players and whether or not the culture change that they tried to affect by changing the roster was taking hold. For at least now, that's been quieted a bit, which is a small win coming out of that loss for the Miami Dolphins. All right, second topic. We have a couple of matchups, the Undefeateds, that I'm going to be keeping a close eye on this weekend. One is the obvious one, outside of Lions-Ravens, which is the Monday night game. We're not going to cover that too in depth here, but the Lions-Ravens, of course, I think to me is the best game of the weekend. The second best game of the weekend, a battle of unbeatens, the Rams and the Eagles. And this is really a sort of proving ground for the Rams. They're going back to Philadelphia after last year's NFC divisional playoff. They came as close to beating the Eagles as anybody. They came back in that game in the snow, in the Eagles environment, and had the ball at the end in the red zone with a chance to win that game. And they come in 2-0. They come in having beaten the Texans, having gone on the road and beaten the Titans. And they'll show up in Philly with, I think, a couple of big matchups to keep an eye on. I think the first one is going to be what the revamped receiver group in Los Angeles, Devontae Adams and Puka Nacua, can do against Quinion Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, Reed Blankenship, and that Eagles secondary. Are they able to take advantage of that second corner spot? That's number one. And then I think the one that we should all be keeping an eye on is that young Rams defensive front that's shown so much promise over the last year, going head-to-head with an Eagles offensive line that remains the best in football. So can't wait for that one. The other game to watch is the Cardinals and the Niners. And the Niners come in, and we're not quite sure. We may know a little more later today, but Brock Purdy is pushing to play. Now, the Niners viewed that as a 2 to 3 week injury when Brock Purdy was hurt with a turf toe. They knew, of course, that he wasn't going to play last week against the Saints. Really, the front end of this was we can get him back in week 4, maybe week 5. That he could be back in week 3 is obviously great news, not just because he may be available in week 3, but also because that means week 4 would seem to be a pretty good spot for him to come back. So whether it's Purdy or Mac Jones, I think the Niners are going to be okay at quarterback in this one. We've seen the defense play really well with so many new parts, with Robert Saleh, young defensive line, developing that group. The secondary has got some youth in spots. Upton Stout's a rookie who's played a bunch for them already. And so, you've got this young Niners defense, this revamped Niners defense. You've got the quarterback carousel there, the quarterback situation a little bit in flux. You got no George Kittle on offense, and they've been able to survive and get it out. So can they do it against a 2-0 Cardinals team? Meanwhile, that Cardinals team, we saw them go from go from bottom of the league to the middle of the league last year. Can they contend for the division title? The next there's that 5-day stretch now that they're up against where they're going to see the Niners on Sunday. They're going to see the Seahawks on Thursday. It's a great proving ground for a young team, for guys like Kyler Murray and Paris Johnson and Marvin Harrison and Max Melton and Darius Robinson and all of these young guys that they've drafted over the last couple of years. I know Kyler's been around a little longer than that, but this is a chance to show that they're a very real contender over the NFC in the NFC West, not just on Sunday, but through that 5-day stretch where they play Sunday and again on Thursday. Finally, our third topic, we are going to have some different looking quarterback situations this week. And I think that there's an interesting dynamic here of these teams' ability to tread water. Two of them are going up against each other. The Vikings and the Bengals, this looked like a fantastic game a couple of weeks ago. Now, instead of getting Joe Burrow versus J.J. McCarthy, we're getting Carson Wentz versus Jake Browning. Really, for the Bengals, for the Vikings, it's about what you can do. It's about how you can tread water while your backup quarterback is in there. We've seen Kevin O'Connell's ability to win with different quarterbacks. We've seen Zach Taylor's ability to win with Jake Browning in particular. So which team can hold serve with their backup quarterback in there? I think that's an interesting one to watch. Because again, I think, in this situation, and we've already seen a few of these. Washington's got Marcus Mariota going this week. The Jets have Tyrod Taylor going this week. With those teams, can you tread water while your quarterback is out? I think we know in most situations, if you lose your starting quarterback, you're up a creek, your season's over. 9 times out of 10, that's the case, maybe even more than 9 times out of 10. The trick is, if your quarterback is out for 2 weeks, for 4 weeks, for 6 weeks, can you tread water? Is your backup quarterback good enough? Is the team around him good enough to support him? It'll be a good test of that for both the Vikings and Bengals as those two teams face off. Appreciate you guys coming out. We are in full swing now, so we'll have another set of Breer Reports next week. We'll have one coming out of the Monday night game on Tuesday. We'll have another mailbag edition either Wednesday or Thursday. We'll come back on Friday with another one of these previewing week 4. Can't wait to see you guys for that. Enjoy the games this weekend.